Does your child struggle with anxiety or depression? Are you a parent of a child who has mental health needs that are being supported maybe at home, but not so well at school? Well, we're going to talk about that today, parents, in our episode of Thriving Special Families. We're going to discuss how to become your child's best advocate around their mental health needs. And we have a wonderful special guest today, Dena Tibsherany. Hi, Dena.
Hi there, Crystal. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely. It's an honor.
Awesome. So, parents, if you're listening to the podcast, then welcome again to Thriving Special Families, your space for hope and along your special needs parenting journey. If you're watching us live, then welcome, families. Always feel free to add your questions to the comment section, and we'll do our best to answer those along the way. And lastly, always know that the information that is shared is for your informational purposes only. If you're in need of legal or medical advice, please do contact a professional in that area. So again, our topic is mental health needs and how can we as parents of kiddos with unique needs better support them and see their needs best met at school. And so Dena is an expert in that area. Dena is the host of the Empowered to Heal podcast, and she's the founder of One World Empowered. I love that name.
Thank you.
Dena is the licensed master's level she's a master's level social worker with 10 years of experience in the mental health field, working specifically with children with complex mental health diagnoses. Dena not only provided direct care to children and their families, but she also trained and led hundreds of employees and developed multiple programs in doing the same. So now Dena has turned that passion in this field to honor each individual, personal story, personal journey, while providing education, insight, and inspiration for them to harness their power within and experience the joy and happiness that they desire in life. So that's a big vision. And I'm just really excited to hear more about it. Dena, tell us kind of what led you to where you are today.
Yes. Well, thank you for the opportunity to share. So I worked in the public mental health system as an outpatient provider, and I started providing counseling services and then treatment that was called Meet Me Where I Am, where we worked with children with, it could be developmental disabilities, any range of mental health struggles, a lot of children in the foster care system. And on our journey, we would provide whatever we needed to support them in doing well. So we became really close knit with families and care providers, care teams for these kids to support in advocating to help meet their needs and dreaming up what that vision would look like. And that was exciting because we would come together as a team and we would say, okay, like, we're exhausted, we're overwhelmed. People are at the brink of wondering if they can continue parenting their child like this anymore, or if they need to find somebody else to help take care of their child. And we would dream up of, if we, like the magic wand question, right? If we had a magic wand, what would we do to help in this moment? And then we'd actually come to the surface and make those dreams come true, pulling on the resources that we had at our clinic. And so that was such an honor. And I loved that role. I did it for 10 years. I was a director when I left. And I realized some limitations in that role, especially from a parenting journey. So I'm a mama as well. And I learned in that journey that oftentimes the lens is so focused on your child that your own mental health needs as an adult, as a parent, can feel sidelined and confused. And you start intertwining the two together. What you're advocating for your child gets really intertwined with what you're advocating for yourself. And it can feel confusing to separate the two of them. And so I left to really move on the fence of supporting parents and mothers in their journey to help figure out, how do I stay whole for my child so I can see clearly, I can understand what their needs are, what they're communicating through their behaviors, and I can help advocate differently because I'm a regulated parent.
Oh, wow. This is just, it's beautiful. It sounds like such an amazing program that you were able to be a part of.
Yes.
And then you're kind of now taking that to another level and supporting families. And this is all about what we're about here at Thriving Special Families. And so many things that you just discussed, like we've talked about and we've had episodes around. So this is just really spot on. Even last week we were talking about secondary trauma,
Mm,
and talking about what experiences every member of the family has when a
yeah.
member is identified with some unique needs, and how to address those, the other individuals, within the family. So, we've talked about
Yes.
that, and we've also talked about, how to, self-care as well, which is really vital. And I think parents, and me included, I'm a specialist parent as well, maybe we don't spend as much time and emphasis on that. Um,
Mhm.
and then teasing out, you're doing your best as a parent to see your child's needs met, but then at the same time, it kind of gets sometimes intertwined with your own needs. Can you talk a little bit more about that? That's really interesting.
Yes, absolutely. So, as a parent, I feel like sometimes we're operating out of our emotion center, right? Like our
Mhm.
emotional drive center. And if we're living in that part of the brain, we can be reacting to the struggles around us, reacting to not getting a good night's sleep, reacting to financial struggles in our home, having to miss another day of work because our child's struggles are so big, getting called into school to help our child because the school's struggling to organize to meet their needs. And this can create and kind of compound our stress and move us into our own fight or flight systems. And when we're living in survival mode or out of our stress brain, we are not actively able to assess, like, what do I truly need in this moment? We're just reacting to what's going on around us. And when we're just reacting to what's going on around us, we might verbalize what we think our child needs through
Mhm.
a stress lens. So we might be saying, like, school, you need to figure out when they're flipping desks over, you need to figure this out. It's your responsibility.
Mhm.
And in our brains, we're saying, like, just help my baby, like,
Yeah.
help my baby because they're trying to tell you something. But
Yeah.
I'm too stressed to communicate that. So I
Yeah.
need to be regulated to help translate that for my child.
Wow, that is beautiful. That's another episode we did, was how to stay regulated when your child is not.
Yes.
That's such a powerful tool that parents can learn, is what can you do to help yourself stay centered when those moments are occurring, and then you can be that better advocate for your child, out in the world. So help us kind of understand the kind of kiddos we're talking about here today. I have a daughter on the spectrum. She's 10 now. What kind of kiddos have you supported? What kind of parents of kiddos have you supported, I guess?
So I would probably say every range that you could imagine. I've worked very closely with children on the autism spectrum, in from high functioning to like nonverbal, not potty trained, like full struggles that way. And then any range of mental health diagnosis you could imagine. Oftentimes supporting children coming out of inpatient facilities, hospitalizations, treatment centers, helping them settle in the community with all that they need in order to do well in the community. And so really, I don't think there's been a scenario I haven't experienced in doing the work and in leading the work.
Okay.
But it's always the same thing that I do, right? When we're trying to understand what a child needs, like, I'm a fly on the wall at first. I'm
Mhm.
going to hone into every sense that I have and
Mhm.
try and understand what that child's communicating, right? And sometimes, especially when it comes to autism, you're like, once you quiet your brain, you're like, oh my gosh, every time a car goes by on that freeway,
Yeah.
my kiddo escalates.
Mhm.
Oh, I
Mhm.
finally understand. Or when the AC kicks on,
Mhm.
their frustration tolerance diminishes.
Yeah.
Or like whenever I put them in clothes to go outside, they're through the roof. And so when you start recognizing and really assessing through the lens of like every sensation you have in your body and experiencing that moment with your child, you can start understanding what they need. But in order to do that, we have to feel safe to do that, right? We have to feel organized within our own body to do that. We can't be like, dude, I can't, like, as a parent, sometimes I'm like, I can't stand on the sidelines. Like, I got to act, right?
Yes.
And so
Uh-huh.
we have to create the structure and the support around us to allow ourselves to get there, to understand exactly what our babies need
Mhm.
and understand that every behavior, like you can predict your child's behavior when you assess and understand the triggers appropriately. But when we're not attuned with ourselves, we can't attune with another person.
Mhm.
And we aren't able to always hone in on what those triggers are, right?
Yeah, this is wonderful. My husband early on, he was so adept at this, and I still try to learn from him in being a student of your child. And I
Yes.
would just watch him watching my daughter while I am being the speech pathologist on the sidelines. I'm like taking data, like how many sounds is she saying, what word, like all this stuff. And he's just watching, he's just engaging. And I remember one of those moments we were driving in the car and she was not even two. And she was just like, frustrated and whiny. And then it would stop and it would start and stop. And that was the day we realized that she was really aversive to the sound of nail clipping.
Ooh.
I was clipping, like I had some stray fingernails and I was clipping my nail in the car. And we figured out that was the trigger every time. So we would stop and start. And I said, oh my God, this is it. But it took that time to just, okay, we're just going to watch. We're going to, like you said, experience the moment with our child to see what really is going on and what are they communicating? Because, I say this to parents all the time. Kiddos are not trying to be naughty to get on your nerves. And I say the same thing for teachers. It may feel that way, but they are exhibiting a behavior, whatever that might be. And that behavior is communicating something
Yes.
that they want or need, or something that's not, a need, an unmet need, something's going on there. And if we can see what that's communicating, then we can better address those needs, in whatever environment.
And we're so good at that when our children are infants,
Yeah.
right? Like we become attuned. We're like, okay, this cry means this
Yeah.
time of day, I know they need this, right?
Mhm.
This facial expression means that.
Yeah.
But as our children grow up, we, in our brains, and I think this is just like culturally, we tell ourselves, like,
Mhm.
we expect our child to be able to communicate it with ease to
Right.
us.
Right.
And not all people can do that,
Yeah.
right? And as a grown adult myself, I have struggles with that when I'm feeling stressed out. I'm just like,
Mhm.
leave me alone if I need to be left alone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's really being able to like tap back down to, okay, when my child was an infant, how did I manage this? And
Mhm.
can I tap back into that moment now without the expectation that your age determines how well
Yes.
you communicate or what your level of functioning is?
Yeah, that's great. And especially I think about our kiddos who, maybe they're quote unquote used to be labeled high functioning autism or whatever it might be, or a kiddo who is verbal and has whatever other challenges. I think there's a certain level of expectation, but even any kid, like you said, when there is something going on, when they're in the middle of having a moment, they're not their highest level of themselves when it comes to their communication skills or whatever. So you can expect to have a full-blown conversation or have them tell you why in the moment.
Yes.
We've got to change that expectation. I think in a school environment, I think that would really help professionals if they realize, okay, I'm not talking this through with this kiddo. Let me just experience it with them. Let me help them come back to a space of calm, and then we can kind of see, moving forward.
Yes. And that's exactly what I help parents do. So I take them on a journey of being able to recognize what they need themselves,
Mhm.
honor and meet that need at a very basic level, right? It's not like I need $1 million. It's I need to be able to maximize the power of my breath to regulate my body. I
Mhm.
need to reframe my thoughts. I need to be able to see my child in the lens I want to see them through.
Yeah.
So we do some of that hard work, and then we're able to understand we work through a series of how do you understand what a child's behaviors are communicating and what
Mhm.
your own behaviors are communicating so that you can label that and communicate that and break it down in really feasible action steps to accomplish that.
Mhm. Wow, that's great. And parents, if you're just joining us again, welcome to another episode of Thriving Special Families. And we're talking about how to become your child's best advocate as your child may experience mental health challenges in some degree. And we have our great special guest here, Dena of the Empower to Heal podcast. And again, if you are just joining us, make sure to leave your questions or comments, and we'll do our best to answer those along the way. And as always, our show is sponsored by Sanford Autism Consulting. If you're ever in need of IEP services or supports, and if you're looking for free IEP guides or supports, always check out SD, like San Diego, autismhelp.com/resources. So again, Dina, help us see this maybe through the lens of school. So, we know we have a kiddo maybe that has, anxiety, depression, maybe they've got some, PDD or whatever it may be, autism. Well, how does that typically translate in a school environment?
Ooh, great question. So for each child, it translates differently, but the factor that all children experience in common is that school adds an extra layer of stress, right? And we can't always control all the factors in a classroom. So we can't control what the other students are doing or saying. We can't control how they breathe. We can't control what they brought that they're having for lunch and how it smells. We can't control all these external factors. But what we can likely come to the conclusion of is that when our child goes to school, there's an increased level of stress that they're going to be experiencing there. So their best functioning that we know them at, that we can usually ground them to, is already kind of fluctuating, right? We can already assess and believe that when they get to school, they're experiencing some kind of stress, that they're not going to be operating at the optimal level that we might be able to get them to. And it's our duty to be, as parents, to be in communication with our schools to advocate how to navigate through that. And one way I like to do that is partner with teachers to understand, okay, what type of classroom is my child in?
Mhm.
Sometimes our kids are in mainstream classrooms. Sometimes our children are not, and they're in like self-contained classrooms or individual schools to help meet those needs. But let's get to know the teachers that are working with our kids, or the person that's going to be with them the most, to understand what's that environment going to look like and what demands are on the teacher that they need to know in order or that we need to know in order to put a picture in our brain of how much access to resources that teacher is going to have to give directly to our child. And
Mhm.
I think that's huge, because as a parent, we're like, just recognize when my child does this and you can respond this way. And the teacher's like, good, but I have 15 other kids in my class, so I don't know if I can do that. And
Mhm.
if you understand those needs, Crystal, I'm sure you, like you mentioned in your break just a minute ago, but that's where IEPs come in. That's where we create these individual plans to create breaks for our kids.
Yeah.
And when you go to these meetings and these opportunities, you're the expert in the room.
Yeah.
As a parent, it might be hard to feel like that. And you might be like, all right, like psychologists and all of you wonderful leaders, come together and tell me what the plan is going to be. But
Yeah.
you have to recognize your own expertise if you are
Yes.
truly going to advocate for your child. If we don't see ourselves as an expert, we might play small as a parent. We really might play small. I do that all the time. If I take my kid to a doctor's appointment, I'm
Yeah.
like, this is how they're behaving and what's going on. Can you help me?
Mhm.
My intuition is going to guide that doctor a whole lot better
Yeah.
than just like giving a blank slate for a doctor to try and work through.
Oh
So I
my.
think that's my big advice there.
That is so great. And I see it all the time as I advocate with families, special needs advocate. Parents are coming to me and they're defeated. They're defeated. They've tried. They have, kind of given their, responsibility or given their child to these professionals and things aren't working right. And that's one of the things I tell parents, is one of my mantras is trust your gut and ask questions. You are that child's parent. You know your child better than anyone. If something doesn't feel right, or maybe there's some things going on, ask questions about that, and don't be afraid, like you said, to play the expert, to be the expert instead of playing small. That's not going to be in the best interest of your child. Like you just said, it's making the other professionals start from scratch.
Mhm.
Whereas if you provide your insight, that gives them something to start with.
Yes. One other thing that I really love, I had a family that I worked with, and they actually did this, and it taught me so much as a practitioner. But they came forward with a sheet of paper, and it was like this, and it had their child's picture on it. And
Mhm.
then it had all of the beautiful things about their child.
Love it.
And it said, like, my child really loves deep squeeze hugs. It makes them feel so safe. When they start flapping their hands and
Yeah.
grunting, they really like a deep squeeze hug. And
Mm.
so it would put that in there for them, right? Or I'm sending my child to school with a jacket on, and they wear this jacket every single day.
Yep.
Even if it gets dirty, don't worry about it. They don't have to take it off, right? Whatever
Mhm.
the little tidbits are, it's like a
Yeah.
face sheet, like a one-page sheet that
Mhm.
you can have that tells not just the hard stuff, but the beautiful things that you've already figured out. That way, when you're under stress in a room of 10
Yeah.
other people staring back at you and you're like, I don't know what to do, you
Mhm.
can rely on that face sheet, that one little profile sheet of your baby to
Yeah.
help you remember what to say, and then you can leave it with them too. And
Yeah.
that can help them see your child in the light you want them to see your child,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
don't always want our child to be seen as the kiddo that's trying to run out of the classroom, or the kiddo that keeps punching the person next to them. Like, we want them to be seen as the kid that loves race cars and
Mhm.
all of their passions, and that they're super curious, but they just
Yeah.
really struggle when somebody sniffs their nose, right? Like,
Right.
that's helpful, tangible information we can leave them with to guide them and shape that full view of our children.
Man, parents, if you are listening, take notes. Like, this is super important, and I talk to parents about this right now, perfect, at the beginning of the school year. Okay. So, we're here at the time of this recording in San Diego, California, and one of the largest school districts has finally started. So it was our first day of school. And so your teachers for your kiddos by law are responsible to have been provided with your child's IEP. Okay. That's bare minimum. And I'm going to tell you, after having worked in schools for 20 years plus, every teacher is not going to read that. Some teachers don't read it for weeks. And unfortunately, some never read it. And so, if you can empower your team by providing something like this fact sheet, you're going to be doing your child a great service. And it's really going to help in the interactions with your teachers and your children in these first few weeks of school. So, if you haven't done it already, create something like that. A parent input statement. It can be added into your child's IEP. It can just be a one pager attached to the IEP, or just a one pager sent out to everybody on your child's team. This can be very empowering, and empowering to the team members, so that they feel like, okay, at least I have a little bit of a handle on this child and how I can best support them at school. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's really, really good. So thank you, Dena, for that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and parents, if you're in need of a copy or a template or anything like that, definitely feel free to email us, info@sdautismhelp.com. We can get you a template for that. So, Dena, what other tips might you have for parents in regards to advocating for their child's mental health, mental well-being at school?
I think another huge one is that let's recognize the environments in which our children do well. So, even in kindergarten, our kids can transition from one room to another. They might do well in their primary classroom, transition to an art classroom, and really get dysregulated. They might really struggle coming back down from the playground to the classroom. And you, as a parent, you already know, like, if I've got to get my kiddo away from the playground in the neighborhood, these are the 10 things I need to know to make that transition happen. Provide that information. And I think it's powerful to use language of not just like facts. If you do this, this will happen, or
Mhm.
this can happen this for this transition,
Mhm.
but help translate your child's communication, right?
Mhm.
So many of our kids communicate in their own unique ways,
Mhm.
whether that's through humming or stemming behaviors, or shutting down, if it's through like how they scribble or how hard they scribble, the
Mhm.
sounds they make. It depends on the functioning of your child, but that individual communication. Let's help everybody learn that language on your team.
Mhm.
And that doesn't have to live in IEP meetings.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the huge one for me, is that sometimes we feel as a parent that we are burdened to live in set scheduled meetings with our kids and their teams at
Mhm.
school. That those teams are really, they're not as frequent as you need them to be as a parent to have things function successfully.
Yeah.
Find out who your one spokesperson is at school that you're going to really focus on building a relationship with and
Mhm.
getting to know, and get to know them, spend time with them. And as you build that relationship, you're going to help infiltrate of the language of your child, right?
Mhm.
What they're
Mhm.
speaking and needing. And that person can get that into all the other, like the art teacher's hands, right? The PE teacher's hands, the aids that they have on the playground,
Mhm.
to support them in that language understanding as well. And then volunteering at school. So I had a mom that as soon as her kids went to public school, she got a permanent volunteering position in the art department. She
Okay.
wasn't in her kids' classroom all the time. She didn't
Mhm.
work directly with her children, but she built a phenomenal relationship with that school on the times that she could. She would come after work. She would make it like every day at lunchtime on this day between my work schedule. She
Mhm.
built it in really strategically so
Wow.
that she was a person who infiltrated the school's perception of her kids, what they needed. She knew who her allies were at school and how to use them. And she had 3 kids at that school with special needs. So she
Mhm.
made it her mission. Like, my babies are going to be loved and taken care of here, despite how hard it's going to be.
Yeah. Wow. Kudos to that mom. That is
I know.
wonderful. And smart. I love that. I love that infiltrating. And, it almost is that, right? We are, infiltrating a different environment, and we're going to go in and help really to change the culture and the perspective and those paradigms little by little, just by your involvement. So that's very smart. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So parents, if you have any remaining questions, definitely let us know, and we will do our best to answer those. We have Marlene watching. Hey, Marlene. She says she loves that idea of that fact sheet, and I do too. I think that can be really powerful and meaningful. And I like, we know what you shared, Dena. Maybe you just get that to your child's case manager or to some specific person on that team, and you make it a point to really engage with that person. They can disseminate it to the rest of the team members if needed. So
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
really cool. So Dena, I just have a question. I know there's parents out there who are saying, well, my kiddo doesn't have autism. They've got other things going on. My kid is the kid that, curses at the teacher, or, maybe they've got some oppositional defiance disorder or whatever other things going on. My kid is that hard kid. My kid is the one who always ends up in the office. What can I do? What do you have to say for those parents?
Oh, beautiful question. So my response to this is usually the opposite from what people expect to hear. So the kids who are struggling with following the rules, the kids who may be the bully at school, and I know that word could be really hard to think of your kid in that way, but if other people are saying that about your kid, if defiance is a common theme for your child, then choice is important. Okay. And that's what I feel like. I say that, and a lot of people say, wait, what? No, if they're not behaving, they have to earn what they need. That's not how you're going to create success in healing with your child who struggles with defiance or authority figures or getting along with others. They need to experience choice in their life. So if you think of, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the collaborative problem solving model. Google it if you're not familiar with it. That was a cornerstone of the work that we did when we were in our Meet Me Where I Am program with our kids and families. You have to be able to get down on a child's level, hear what they're trying to say, empathize with them, validate their emotions before you bring your own emotions into it. And then once you see through their lens, you can start helping them see through your lens and create choices on how to get through the struggle. Now, what I love about the collaborative problem solving model is that it's not always that way, right? We can't always work it out with our child because we don't always have time. That's the best way that's going to create healing and movement and progress. But there are moments where it's like, not today, right? I'm not even going to handle this today. So the behavior is going to go on, right? Because if I handle it today, I'm not going to be in the right mindset to get to the end point in a way that I want to. Or it might be like a my way or a highway type of scenario, right? Where, you know what, I'm the parent, get in the car, we're leaving. That's the only choice you have, right? And so this model talks you through all 3 of those options and how to use them through a place of what's your end goal, what are you working towards, and then if we are going to work it out, how do we do that as a parent? Which it brings us back to the beginning of this conversation, Crystal, when we were talking about self-regulation as parents, right? And meeting our own needs so that we can get through the hard moments, because they could take an hour to get in the car, right?
Oh,
An
yeah.
hour to leave a classroom.
For sure. So I think that is really meaningful, parents. If you haven't heard about this, the collaborative problem solving method, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Google that, or definitely contact Dena for more information. But I know just personally that has worked so well with our kiddo. When we're having these, I don't like this, or I don't want that, or perseverating on a one thing, which is a common autism kind of a behavior. It's the choice, right? Okay, you've got two choices. Mom, I don't like this. Okay, you can either do this or that. And the other option is something that I'm actually wanting her to do anyway. That could be slightly related. So I'm giving her two choices, but at least she feels like she's had a choice. That power of choices can be really meaningful.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's really important. Okay, and then we have a parent who's saying, can you tell us the name of that one more time?
Yes, it's the collaborative problem solving model.
Okay, and I'm going to actually add that to our notes. The
If
collaborative.
you go to livesinthebalance.org, you'll see a lot of details about it. And that's a model that's worked with every range of child that I have worked with. So, I've worked with kids who are in the juvenile delinquent systems, and they've spent the majority of their time in the justice system. Kids who are in the foster care system who have no reason to trust anyone in the world. So they kind of like stake it out, and they're really immobile to work with. And this model can create a sense of safety. It can build relationship and help create that, like, I'm being seen as a child, I'm being heard as a child. And if I feel seen and heard, I'm much more likely to work it out with you than if I feel like you're imposing on me or I'm being forced to move along with the crowd.
That's great. Oh, wow. Dena, we could just talk for hours, but our time is up for today. But again, this has been another episode of Thrive in Special Families. We've been talking about how to be your child's best advocate in their mental health needs and their well-being. And Dena has talked with us just about such powerful truths like translating your child's communication for others. So if you know your child is XYZ and it means this, help others to understand what your children are saying by their behaviors. And that's going to make school in one environment, a little bit easier. So that's one thing. We've also talked about the power of choice and how that really builds a trust in a safe environment. Also, learning what your needs are. And even at a basic level, getting your needs met as a parent is going to help you be in a good space to parent your child who has unique needs. So if you are looking for more information, definitely check out Dena and what she's doing. Dena, let us know what projects you're involved in. What are you doing?
Yes. So I have a podcast called Empower the Number Two Heal. So the Empower to Heal podcast, where every week we're popping on with stories of healing and sharing how looking at your body through different lenses or shifting your perspective on life helps you heal in life. I also provide coaching services, especially for mothers. So this is all about healing through trauma, self-regulating. So I know you talked about secondary trauma, right? As parents, we often hold on to that. How do we regulate our body and meet our own needs so that we can meet the needs of our children? Working through like postpartum season is something that I specialize in. And then I have an entire 8-week course for parents of children with mental health needs. And it's all about recognizing your own needs, your child's needs, regulating and meeting your own needs, learning a bunch of techniques to meet your children's needs. And so it's an 8-week interactive. We have coaching calls. We have like a learning platform that you're on to really guide you through that experience so that you can be the best advocate for your child. You can show up and be what your child needs, even on the hard days, because you know what you need and you're able to meet that.
All right, that sounds like a must-have right there. So let us know again how parents can contact you.
Yes, you can reach out to me. You can join me on my website at oneworldempowered.com. There's a lot of ways you can reach out to me on there, or you can click on things that I offer to connect with me, or you can email me through my podcast email. It's Dena, DENAT, at empower, the number 2, heal.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, Dena, it has definitely been a pleasure. And parents, always remember that you are going to be okay and your child is going to be okay too. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor.
All right. Have a great one.
Take care.